outreach team approaching. Hello, we're street outreach team. Hi, my name's Scott, and that's Andre over there, and we're from the street outreach team. We come out at night to meet with people who are sleeping outside in places like abandoned houses and in their cars and tents in the woods and under bridges. And we saw you here under this bridge, so we thought we'd come over and say hello. I wonder if I can give you a brochure that tells a little bit about what we do and has some information about resources here in Racine. And that is how we typically start a street outreach contact with someone we don't know, as we do street outreach throughout the year here in Racine, Wisconsin. During the point in time, you'll be using some street outreach techniques as you go out on the streets at night and on the night of count. Street outreach throughout the year and point in time are a little bit different. The street outreach that we typically do is relationship-based, while in point in time you're out to collect data, but you'll use some of the same principles, especially as you go out to try to locate people who may be unsheltered, then approach people who may be unsheltered, and finally initiate contact with people who may be unsheltered as you bridge the gap and see if you can get consent to start a point-in-time survey with the survey tool. So now we'll go through some basics on how we do street outreach to approach people and make contact. Talking about unsheltered homelessness. We've covered homelessness and the homeless definition that we use for point in time in other videos. But before we get into street outreach principles and techniques, I'd like to look at 3 ways we talk about unsheltered homelessness during street outreach: homeless, unsheltered, and sleeping or staying outside. These could all be talking about the same thing, but we use them in different ways. Homeless is not a useful term for street outreach purposes. It's a very general and sometimes highly emotional term that can mean a lot of different things to different people. People who are not homeless, by the definition we use for point in time, often describe themselves as homeless. People who we are 100% sure are unsheltered have told us that they are not homeless. Homeless has a stigma for some people. It's almost a badge of honor for others. And it can be a word used by others as they attempt to access resources. It doesn't give us any useful information about someone's current living situation. And when we meet someone for the first time, we don't know how they interpret, feel about, or use the word homeless. So, we typically avoid using the word homeless during street outreach interactions, especially at the initial contact. Where we do use the word homeless is when we are talking with clerks at 24-hour locations. We ask them if they've seen anyone around who they think might be homeless. If they have, we ask for more information to help us look for and identify that person in the area. We use the word homeless with clerks because it's the easiest term for them to readily understand what we are talking about. We're not asking them to make any kind of homeless verification or determination. We're just looking for information that might help us locate someone, and then we will try to determine whether the person's current living situation is unsheltered. Which brings us to unsheltered. Unsheltered is a slightly technical term that means someone's current living situation is in a place not meant for human habitation. It differentiates someone in that situation from others who might be in an emergency shelter. They might be doubled up or living in some other situation that doesn't meet the homeless definition and is not on the streets. Unsheltered is a term that is very useful in professional settings among people who provide homeless services, especially street outreach teams. With a single word, we can quickly and precisely describe someone's current living situation. It's less useful, though, for people who are not involved in providing homeless services. When we've used the word unsheltered with clerks at 24-hour stores, they just gave us sort of a puzzled look. We tend to use the word unsheltered amongst ourselves and other people who work in homeless services but don't usually use it with people we meet on the streets. Sleeping outside or staying outside. This is a descriptive term for a current living situation, and it's how we usually talk about unsheltered homelessness with someone we are approaching who we think might actually be unsheltered. We tell them that we meet with people who are sleeping outside and then mention some examples of what we mean by that. All of the examples are types of places not meant for human habitation, although we never actually use that term. The last example we mention will be the place where we have met that person, explaining why we're speaking to the person, as well as starting to give a description of what we're doing and what we mean by staying outside. Our efforts and language will focus on determining where the person is staying or sleeping that night. Most of the time, we never mention the words homeless or unsheltered or use the phrase place not meant for human habitation, even though we may later use those same terms in data collection and reporting to describe the person's current living situation from what we have learned. How do we locate people who are unsheltered? Look in places that provide cover. Cover protects people from weather and elements. Most people who have been out for any period of time are using some kind of cover, or they are not very far from it. Cover helps people stay warm and as dry as possible in their situations. Examples of cover used by people we have met during street outreach in Racine include public buildings such as parking ramps, bus shelters, abandoned houses, pavilions, tents, makeshift shelters made from tarps, plastic, and other items, inside of cars and vehicles, both running and not running, on porches, verandas, and in alcoves of buildings, including commercial buildings after business hours, under bridges, under trees and bushes, especially evergreens, in 24-hour businesses such as convenience stores and laundromats, in warming centers, and places like hospital emergency department waiting rooms. Look in places that offer concealment. In Racine, most people who are unsheltered are not readily visible from the roads and sidewalks. They're using some form of concealment. Concealment is when something prevents someone from being seen. People use concealment for safety purposes and to prevent someone from coming along and telling them that they have to move on. Some locations provide cover and concealment, others provide only one or the other. Examples of concealment used by people who have been unsheltered in Racine include behind buildings, behind walls, behind trees and bushes, behind the crest of hills or mounds, in wooded areas, either large woods or small groups of trees, using camouflage tarps and branches to conceal tents and structures, using privacy blinds to cover windows in cars, which actually makes it easier to identify a car with someone who is unsheltered, but harder to see the person, or blending in with other cars and not using blinds, which is hiding in plain sight. The key point is that as a street outreach team or as a point-in-time team, if you don't get out of your vehicle and look behind concealment, you are less likely to locate someone who is unsheltered in Racine. To locate a tent, makeshift shelter, or other type of sleeping location that may be partially concealed, let your eyes adjust to the dark and then use any light on the horizon line or any backlighting to look at the silhouettes for unusual shapes that might be a tent or person sleeping with items. Also, listen carefully. People who are unsheltered and living in tents often listen to music or even watch movies on their phones. You might also hear coughing or snoring in the night, which could lead you to a sleeping location that you can't otherwise see. We don't use flashlights much, but some people use lights in their tents. This gives a light glow, often the color of the tent that you can see through woods and even through some attempts to camouflage. Sometimes people make fires, including low-burning fires that are hard to see. You may or may not be able to see the light of the fire, but you may be able to smell the smoke from the fire coming from an encampment that you're not able to see. Follow that smell. Look for access points. Anyone who has been using the same site for a week or more will have left some kind of access trail to and from that location. Some people are better at concealing their access points than others, but they will still be there. Look for tracks in the snow that seem to lead to a concealed area, or paths in the grass, in the weeds, or brush, especially off bike or hiking trails and around the edge of wooded areas. If you see a trail and think, I wonder where that trail is leading, go and find out. Look near places of convenience. People who are unsheltered still have to meet basic needs and use the bathroom, get food, get clean, access other resources, and maybe have some social contact. They often stay not too far from where they can meet these needs. This is why we ask clerks at 24-hour convenience stores if they've seen anyone around who they believe might be homeless. If they have, we might want to increase our search in that area, especially if the clerk reports recent contact and can give a good description of the person. How do we identify people who may be unsheltered when we see them? Well, you can't just tell by looking at someone whether or not they are unsheltered. Some people look like they would meet stereotypes of someone who's unsheltered, with battered clothes and a weathered, unkempt look, and yet be staying inside an apartment at night. Others blend in perfectly with the rest of the general population wherever they go. People can be clean and well-groomed and well-dressed, yet sleep outside. You just can't tell. You also can't tell by what people are doing during the day. There are people in Racine who sit out in front of stores during the day and receive generous gifts from compassionate passers-by, but who are not unsheltered or on the streets at night. Other people stay with friends or family, but they have to leave their apartment or house during the day, and then they wander the streets until evening when they go home to sleep. At the same time, there are people who are not visible on the streets during the day because they're working or doing other things, who spend the night sleeping in a place not meant for human habitation. You just can't tell. So when you see someone at night, some of the things that you're looking for to decide whether to approach the person might include actually sleeping in a place not meant for human habitation. If you see them sleeping outside while you're doing pit, they're probably unsheltered. Also, people having a lot of belongings with them, whether they're sitting or standing or walking. People who are walking but not appearing to have any purpose or specific destination, just kind of wandering and stopping and going. People who have a cart or something with belongings in it that seems to be their personal things that they're carrying around. People looking for cigarette butts or rummaging through items in dumpsters or trash cans or someplace. People sitting in a car that's running late at night, parked in an isolated spot that has the seats back and has items in it, or has privacy blinds or some other kind of indicator that someone might be using their car as their residence. Or you see people moving to a location in the woods or some other area that's possibly being used as an unsheltered sleeping location. Just because someone meets some of those criteria does not mean that they are unsheltered. Most people you see at night are going to or coming from work, from visits or shopping or doing other things. But those are a few things to look for as you decide whether you want to approach and speak to someone who might be unsheltered during point in time. Approaching people who may be unsheltered. Your point-in-time street outreach team should approach someone who might be unsheltered in a manner that, to the greatest extent possible, minimizes the possibility that the person might interpret your approach as a threat. Street outreach and point in time takes place at night. Most people have some degree of safety concerns when they are out and alone at night. People who are unsheltered, especially recently unsheltered, and people who have experienced trauma are likely to have even more heightened concerns and be hypervigilant. As your team begins to approach someone who might be unsheltered at night, especially someone it does not know and is approaching for the first time, it must do so in a manner that allows the person to determine as quickly as possible that your team is not a threat to them. Some of the principles applied in making such an approach include: commit to the approach. Don't be a stalker. As the team is assessing a potentially unsheltered person and determining whether and how to make an approach, the person may also be assessing the team to determine whether it's a threat to their safety. Having a person or persons stop or slow down and visibly stare at or observe you while talking amongst themselves in the night could be frightening to anyone. While deciding whether or not to make contact with an unsheltered person, your point-in-time team should not have stalker-like behavior that might frighten, traumatize, or re-traumatize someone. The team should commit to and start an approach as quickly as possible or just pass by without frightening the person. Commit to the approach. Determine lead team member. One team member should take the lead and be the front person who will eventually initiate contact and speak to the person you want to meet. Determine your lead for the approach. Be seen. Your team should make every effort possible to approach the person from a direction in which they will be seen by the person if the person is awake and looking. Avoid approaching people from the rear, and even take a wide or circuitous route if necessary to be easily visible to the person during the approach. The team should approach vehicles towards the driver's side door at about a 45-degree angle, aligning yourself with the rearview mirror on the driver's side and the driver's seat. You'll be wearing reflective vests that serve the purpose of increasing your visibility to the person, decreasing the potential appearance of a threat, and reinforcing your identity as some kind of street outreach team that's undertaking a street outreach activity. Be seen. Don't use a flashlight. Although street outreach teams carry flashlights, they are rarely used during approaches and never without the permission of anyone nearby. Flashlight use may have unfavorable law enforcement connotations that might cause someone distress as you make an approach. Flashlights could also draw attention to the person from other people in the area and result in subsequent law enforcement contact. Allow your eyes to adjust to the dark as needed and use the horizon lines to help guide you as necessary rather than relying on flashlights as you make an approach. Don't use a flashlight. Be heard. Your point-in-time team should announce its approach in a gentle and friendly way that can be heard by the person, but without shouting. This is sometimes called a call-out. It alerts the person that someone is approaching and informs the person who the team is and what it's doing. A typical call-out during an approach might be, "Hello, we're a street outreach team coming up or coming in or coming over," or whatever, depending on the nature of the approach. You don't have to be loud. Speaking in a normal voice, if the person is outside, most of the time they can hear you. Be heard. Have something in hand. Team members should have their hands visible as they make an approach and, if possible, have something in their hands such as a bottle of water, a backpack, a thermos, a blanket, a brochure, or something. Having some kind of outreach item visibly in hand helps show that the team is not carrying something bad like a gun or a knife or a club, and, when included with the vests and the call-out, helps validate the team as some kind of street outreach team that's probably doing something good. Have something in hand. Keep a distance. The lead person and the rest of the team should stop before they reach the distance of typical social interaction with people who you know. The team can approach closer later if the person appears to be at ease, but should only go as far as needed to be heard when speaking to the person and to hear the person if they respond. Keep a distance. Don't bunch up or crowd the person. Your team should not bunch together in a manner that might make the person you're trying to approach feel overwhelmed. Other team members should stay at least 5 yards behind your lead if possible. They should stand off at an angle so that they are visible to the person being contacted. That way, the person can concentrate on the lead person while knowing that the rest of the team is visible but further away. If there are more than 2 or 3 members on your team, other members should wait in the vehicle or stand even further back and not directly participate in the approach at all. Once the lead is comfortably starting a dialogue with the person, the other team members can move up and join in or observe. But don't bunch up or crowd the person. Don't block the person's escape route. Approach under the assumption that, despite all efforts by your team, the person might still be frightened and decide to flee. Ensure that the person has a clear escape route. Blocking a person's only escape route, intentionally or unintentionally, could be considered a hostile or threatening action. Don't block the person's escape route. Abort the approach if necessary. If a person is showing signs of distress due to your team's approach, stop. Put your hands up so that they are even more clearly visible and make additional efforts to communicate who you are and that you're not a threat. If the person still seems distressed, say, "We're sorry. We didn't mean to scare you. We will leave the way we came and we won't bother you. Have a good night." Our desire to get point-in-time data does not outweigh a person's right to feel safe. After leaving the location of an aborted approach, the team can stop to discuss what happened, whether any team members have ideas for how to adjust the approach the next time, and decide whether to make an observation in the point-in-time survey tool. Abort the approach if necessary. Know what you're going to say. The lead should start any approach with the assumption that it will result in making initial contact with the person. That means that the lead for the approach must be ready to speak and know what to say when the time comes. The process of mitigating safety concerns starts with the approach but continues right into those first words at initial contact. Know what you're going to say. Don't peer into people's space. If the person is in a vehicle and doesn't respond to the call out and isn't immediately visible, don't walk around the vehicle and peer into the windows to see if there's someone inside. That's what a car thief, a stalker, or someone intending harm might do. If a person is sleeping there as a primary nighttime residence, just wait. Another time, the street outreach team will come through if you've made an observation, and they'll follow up later and try to make the contact and determine if the person was unsheltered on the night of count. Likewise, Don't open tent flaps, put on flashlights, or look around someone's campsite without first announcing what you're doing, why you're doing it, and asking permission before you do it, even if you can't see anyone. Say, for example, I'm going to put on a flashlight to see if there's anyone here and see if this thing over here next to the tent is a person or some blankets or something else. If there's someone here and you don't want me to do that, just say, "Don't do it," or "Go away," and I won't put the flashlight on. Then wait briefly before using the light to see something specific, and then turn it off again quickly so as not to draw attention. Don't peer into people's space. If your team is successful in its approach, the lead will begin initiating contact, which essentially just means starting a conversation with the person who you want to meet. This continues the process of reassuring the person that your team is not a threat, either to their safety or to their ability to remain in that place if they choose to do so. Initial contact can take a couple of different directions, especially during a point in time, but it should have 3 key points that come out right in the first few seconds of contact. And those are 1, a friendly greeting. Always start with a friendly greeting. Hi, hello, hi, how you doing, or something like that. It's a real icebreaker, it puts people at ease, and it starts a friendly conversational approach to meeting this person. The second is say the names of everyone on your team that the person can see. Hi, my name is Scott, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so, and that's so-and-so back there. By introducing your name, again, you're disclosing who you are. You followed up a friendly greeting with some information about yourself, and it just makes people feel more comfortable when they know who you are. And the third thing is introduce who you are as a team and what you're doing there and why you're talking to that person. Again, to try to put the person at ease and answer some of those questions they have in their mind as they're trying to determine who are these people who are coming to see me at night. So you could go with the street outreach approach and say, we're a street outreach team and we're out tonight to meet with people who are sleeping outside in places like this and this and this, and like this place we found you at, so we came to say hi. Or you could go straight into point in time and say, we're a point in time team conducting the point in time count in Racine tonight, and explain point in time. Either way is fine. If you use a street outreach approach, you tend to go a bit slower. Follow the person's lead, ask questions, try to figure out what's going on, and then determine if the person is unsheltered by what we see and what we hear. Then ask if they want to go to shelter. If they don't, ask if they want supplies. And after that, then introduce a pit. Say, well, it's also a point in time count night here in Racine. Explain that and see if they would consent to do a point in time interview as the end part of that conversation. If you're more comfortable with a scripted approach, you can just go straight into the point in time script that's on the survey tool and use the survey to determine if that person is unsheltered. Either way is fine. One note is, as you're talking to someone, if you see that they seem to be in a little bit of distress or concern or skeptical or worried or anything like that, you can usually read it in their face, you might need to tell them who you are not. So sometimes we'll have to say, we're not the police, or we're not the city, or we're not the county, or we don't work for this business over here, and we're not here to ask you to leave or hassle you or push you away, because often you have to remember that people are staying in places they're probably not supposed to stay, and they're afraid of people coming and telling them to go. So you want to reassure them that that's not what you're there to do if you see that that might be a concern. So that's initial contact. Now I'd like to show a couple of videos from our January 2022 point in time. They're street outreach videos that we did for that pit count. They're not the greatest, but they do give some examples of what street outreach looks like in the field. You'll see us going through a parking garage, meeting someone in a car, and showing some general principles of street outreach contacts in these videos. The principle is be heard, which is meaning that we want to be heard by someone who's ahead of us who we can't see. So we use this anytime we're entering an area where there might be someone who's experiencing homelessness, staying outside, but we can't see them and they can't see us. So we don't want to surprise them or scare them. We want them to hear us coming and know who we are, what we're doing, maybe even who we're not before we get there, so we don't take them by surprise or frighten them. This could work in woods, going around corners of buildings, in a lot of different places. We also use it in staircases and so on, in parking garages, and that's an example we're going to do right now. So we're going to go through here and just start a call out, as we call it. I used to shout street outreach when I would go into places. That's how we started years ago, and we're even trained in point in time to yell, street outreach. Now I think that's kind of silly, and we don't do that anymore. We try to be a little more friendly and explain what we're doing a little bit better. So let's go in. First thing we see is that this stairwell has recently been tagged, but let's go up. Hello, anybody home? Anybody around? We're street outreach team coming up the steps. We're street outreach team. We have some blankets, we have water, some hand warmers, things like that. Anybody around? We're not the police or metro police or the city or anything like that, so we're not here to chase anybody out. We just have some assistance to help you out and keep you warm if there's anybody here. Anybody around? Street outreach team here. Coming up. Hello? Anybody around? And it looks like nobody is here, and we move on to the next day. It's Friday night before point in time, and I'm out with Quisha on street outreach, and we are going to show the principle of be seen. The idea here is, as we're making an approach to someone, they should see us at a good distance so we don't take anybody by surprise. We never want to come up behind someone, and I'm going to make some real effort so that they can see me. We'll also do something like not crowding is another principle. Don't crowd. You'll see Quisha will stay about this distance behind me when we're making contact, so people don't feel sort of pressure of a lot of people coming in, especially for your teams of 4. Don't all crowd up against a car or someplace where you're trying to meet with someone. It can be a little stressful for them. And also, there's another principle here of have something in your hands. There's a couple reasons for that. First of all, if you have something good in your hands, like water or a brochure or a blanket, for example, then you don't have something bad in your hand. You're not threatening. Secondly, it helps validate that you're a street outreach team. If you say, I'm doing street outreach, and you have things that a street outreach worker might carry, it makes it easier for the person to process and say, yeah, I think this person really is safe and a street outreach person. And finally, when you're making contact, if you offer someone a bottle of water and you have it in hand, it's a lot easier and you get a better response than having an empty hand and saying, hey, would you like a bottle of water? And they look around and wonder where that water is going to come from. But we'll concentrate here on being seen. I'm also going to knock on this car, imagining that someone is sleeping in a car that we're going to approach. And usually I don't do that. It's something I haven't done in a few years. And it goes back to the difference between street outreach as a relationship building activity, where if someone's sleeping, we might decide that, well, we'll just wait until another night and talk to them then, and a data collection exercise where we really want to meet them and try to get some information from them. So in point in time, I'm going to knock on a car door if I see someone sleeping here. So what we're going to do is we're going to imagine that someone is in that car over there, and we are going to make an approach. And what I want to do is stay wide of the car, as wide as possible as we go around, so that the person can see us coming, go in front of the car so that they can see us. Then I'll come up on the driver's side at about a 45-degree angle and give a little bit of a distance to try to talk to them. So we'll imagine someone's in there and I'll do a sort of introduction. You'll see even if I knock on the window, I'll step back a little bit if I get a response. So let's head out and see if we can make some contact in be seen. Ready? Yes. Let's go. We're going to swing wide this way. Hello, we're street outreach team. Yeah, looks like they're sleeping. I'm gonna try to wake them up. Hello? Hi, how you doing? Hi, my name's Scott, and I'm with Felicia there. We're a street outreach team doing a point in time count tonight. Have you heard about point in time? Point in time is when we come out once or twice a year to count the number of people who are experiencing homelessness here in Racine. And we count all of the people who are in shelters tonight, and also people who are sleeping outside in abandoned buildings or parks, or even sleeping in cars. And we saw you here tonight, so we thought we'd come by and say hi and see if we can offer any assistance. We have some water. Queecha has a blanket here, some hand warmers. Can we offer you some water or something to keep warm? We also have a brochure here that has some information about services for people experiencing homelessness. And if you'd be interested, we'd like to talk to you a little bit and conduct a survey that's confidential so that we can at least count the number of people who are outside tonight if you're staying outside. All right, cut. Hello, we're street outreach team. Yeah, looks like they're sleeping. I'm gonna try to wake them up. Hello? Hi, how you doing? Hi, my name's Scott, and I'm with Felicia there. We're a street outreach team doing a point in time count tonight. Have you heard about point in time? Point in time is when we come out once or twice a year to count the number of people who are experiencing homelessness here in Racine. And we count all of the people who are in shelters tonight, and also people who are sleeping outside in abandoned buildings or parks, or even sleeping in cars. And we saw you here tonight, so we thought we'd come by and say hi and see if we can offer any assistance. We have some water. Queecha has a blanket here, some hand warmers. Can we offer you some water or something to keep warm? We also have a brochure here that has some information about services for people experiencing homelessness. And if you'd be interested, we'd like to talk to you a little bit and conduct a survey that's confidential so that we can at least count the number of people who are outside tonight if you're staying outside. All right, cut. This is the principle of staying at the person's level. The idea is that when we're meeting someone who's sitting down, we want to try to keep our head at the same level or a lower level than that person. And it really works at being able to communicate better and making them feel comfortable. So what we're doing now is we're seeing that there's someone sitting on that bench over there, and I'm going to make an approach. And I'll also use some of the other principles of being heard. The person's not looking at me, so I'm going to announce my presence by speaking. I'm going to try to swing wide and keep some space so that they see me as I'm approaching, and then I'm going to get down to their level to try to engage with that person. I don't know that person doesn't know me, so I'm not going to push in too fast. I'm going to try to be as friendly as possible and see what we can do in terms of making contact and applying some of those principles. So here we go. I'm going to start my approach. I'm out on street outreach. I'm a street outreach worker. We have some things. We come out to meet people who might be staying outside. And I saw you sitting here, so I thought I'd come by and say hello. Can I offer you some water here? Something to drink? Sure. We also have some extra blankets in our vehicle over there, if we can do that. If you need something to stay warm, and some hand warmers, as well as some information about some services that are available for people who are homeless here in Racine. And tonight is point in time count night. Have you heard of point in time? Point in time is when we count the number of people who are homeless here in Racine 1 or 2 nights per year. So we count all of the people who are in shelter tonight, and we're also out tonight on the streets counting people who might be sleeping in abandoned buildings or parking garages or even benches. So I saw you here, and I just thought I'd say hi and see if you're okay and if you're warm enough and if you're staying outside. So are you outside tonight? You are? Okay. Would you like to go to shelter? No? Okay, because we could get you into shelter. We could give a call and get you to a safe place. Otherwise, but you're not interested. Would be fine? Okay. In that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a call to Eric, a guy from Halo, and he'll come in and get you into shelter tonight, and they'll take care of you there. So let's get some hand warmers and things to keep you warm until then. Can you bring some stuff over here? One of my colleagues will bring it, and we'll get you into shelter. Okay. So in that example, I talked to her, and she said she did want to go into shelter. So since she wants to go into shelter tonight, I will not do a point in time survey with her. We'll get her into shelter, and she will be counted in the shelter count instead of the unsheltered count for tonight's point in time. If she said she does not want to go to shelter, then I would have asked her if I could have her permission to do a confidential survey and see if she would respond to that. But the main point was I stayed at her level or a little bit lower than her to engage with her to try to make it a little more comfortable. And just as a note, it's not actually someone who's experiencing homelessness. We don't film that on video. It's my colleague, Grisha. If you have any questions about street outreach, you can contact me by email before point in time, or you can ask them at orientation on the night of count. So we hope that you're ready to go out and meet people where they are on Racine's point in time unsheltered count. We'll see you on the night of count when Racine counts. Yeah.
Smiles in that one.